Welcome, everybody. This is Kurt Steinberg, president of Montserrat College of Art, and we're doing our Zoomcast practice and process. And I have the honor of having fine artist Jessica Lau with me today. She is works in ceramics and collage. And one of the themes that we've been doing is around sort of artist response during the pandemic and in quarantine. And in fact, one of the things that I was super interested and wanted Jessica on this call was because she's been doing something specifically on her website that she calls Art During Quarantine. And with her permission, I'm going to read the first couple of sentences of your sort of artist statement for this space, and just let you react to it and let us know, what you've been doing, because I just think it's got some incredible depth. We are all feeling the impact of COVID-19, and as we are under lockdown, we are beginning to understand how relationships between ourselves, other people, and the spaces we inhabit can deeply shape our sense of identity. I question the act of creating as an artist and intentionally reject the urge to consume. Instead, my artistic practice has shifted from ceramic sculpture to paper collage. So, obviously, the statement talks about a transition, an exploration, which are themes I've heard other artists talk about as well during this period of time. But can you tell us a little bit more about sort of how you got to this place and actually an honest conversation about, are you still in that place or have you moved on to something else? So love to hear your reaction to that.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm so honored to be here. And yes, I think we're all feeling the stress of this pandemic and the social inequalities that have been going on in our country are sort of coming to the surface. And so we're re-looking at our lives and reanalyzing the things that we feel make us who we are. So for me as a creator, one of the things that I was struggling with was the act of making something as a sculptor, specifically in ceramics. Ceramics comes from the earth, but you fire it, and then once you fire it, it becomes this object with permanence. So during the lockdowns at the beginning of the pandemic, I was considering making things out of clay, but maybe not firing them and then recycling them. But then even in that act, I was thinking, wow, I'm a consumer. I am guilty of a capitalist society, and I've accumulated so many things, and really analyzing, are these objects that I'm making, are the objects that are in my home, which I've been spending a lot of time in, are these things what define me? And so in the process of doing this overhaul of my home and my studio, I was getting rid of things, throwing things away, and then I was confronted with another conundrum. There's a lot of waste. How can I use the things that I already have bought or inherited or consumed, and how can I repurpose them to give them more meaning rather than using materials that I would buy online or I would go to the clay supply store and get. So one of the things I've been doing is shifting from a physical practice of working in my clay studio and actually just working right here, right in my living room. And I've been using these old books that I purchased a decade ago. And I thought it was really interesting in trying to decide whether or not to save them or throw them away. In a way, they were a time in my life. They have a lot of memory, but I haven't used them and they're just collecting dust. So one of the books that I've been using is this book of Chinese jade. And I remember buying this book in my undergrad studies over 10 years ago, thinking that having this book on my bookshelf would make me more Chinese, that I felt like my identity was somehow not genuine, that maybe I wasn't a good Chinese woman because I knew nothing about Chinese art or Chinese antiquities. So I have a bunch of these books, these catalogs, and they really are beautiful. So they're these like gorgeous catalogs. Some of them are black and white, some of them are color. And so even though this isn't me anymore, I still felt like I needed to pay homage to a past version of myself. And that's where the collage came. And working in 3D has something really visceral to it. So I wasn't getting it at first with the flat work. So then I started thinking about using my sculptures, but still in a flat way. And one of the things I did was I went into my studio and I photographed my sculptures. So I don't have them here. They're in my studio, which is not in my home. And I photographed as many as I could, and I printed them out. And then this was the material for my collaging. So you can see this is my sculpture, and then this is the collage. And what's so great about this is I have different elements of my identity from different parts of my history, different parts of my narrative. I have this part where I was feeling a bit of an imposter, and I bought this book to feel more authentically Chinese. And so I'm using the catalog image, I'm using my sculptures, and then putting them together in this new way to create a more authentic representation of who I feel I am. And I feel like it ties nicely in with thinking about objects and the significance of objects and repurposing them instead of throwing them away and causing more waste. So yeah, that's how my practice has shifted, and it feels really therapeutic, as art should be.
There you go. So are you still in that space? You're still exploring this sort of avenue?
Yeah, I'm still making collages. And what I found really interesting about the process is I'm not tied to calling myself a ceramic artist.
Okay.
And so dissolving this one part of who I thought I was and letting it go, I've been able to do that with other aspects of my life, which have been really therapeutic as well.
So would you call this sort of an evolution?
Yeah, absolutely. A healthy evolution.
Yeah. With intention, though. I mean, you're making conscious choices as you go along. This is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. And it's giving me more courage to explore other things that I maybe wouldn't have the courage to do before. So I've been painting more, I've been drawing, and it's been actually kind of nice to have all these digital platforms. I've been doing these studio sessions with my friends and essentially just working together over Zoom. And it's been really great to have this new way of collaborating with people, in which before it felt really intimidating to have to go to someone's studio. It's just this one extra step that used to stop me from doing it.
Right.
And same thing with this, doing the flat work, it sort of opened up this whole other world that I wouldn't have felt safe doing before. I think a lot of us are feeling that right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. The question and you may not have even thought about this yet, but when the pandemic sort of ends, and it will at some point, you'll have more freedom to go to your studio. And have you started at all sort of thinking about how you sort of intersect this or resolve? And maybe there isn't anything to resolve, but that's the only term I can come up with right now, is sort of resolve the before and after, I guess it's sort of imperfect way to put it. But
yeah, that's a very interesting thing to consider. And of course I've thought about that. Like, how is my three-dimensional practice going to change? What is my studio going to look like when I go back to it? Will I leave sculpture? And I think that the beautiful thing about life, and no matter what profession you're in, things are constantly changing because we have these little hiccups or obstacles or interruptions. So even in my own clay practice, if you just look at it from that lens of just what I've done with clay, I feel like it's evolved so much. And ultimately, I am who I am, and it doesn't matter what material I'm working in. I'm going to express myself and express parts of my identity. So you could give me like cake and I would still be able to make something that I feel is an authentic representation of myself.
Right.
So I think what the pandemic has done, it's made us face these obstacles without a choice. It forced us to reevaluate certain things in our lives.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling I'll probably return to the comfort of clay, just because we all feel comfortable doing the things that come easy to us. But I am so grateful to have this new practice and this uncomfortable space to explore whether or not I'll willingly put myself in this uncomfortable space. I don't know.
Yeah.
To be determined.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you so much for being on this and sharing all those great thoughts with us. It's very much apparent there's a deep thoughtfulness and intentionality to what you're doing. I just, thank you very much. And we really appreciate talking to you today, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Kurt. It's been my pleasure.
Awesome.